Welcome back to the late day wrap up, of which I'd like to follow up on this morning's short-term and medium-term time frame analysis. Also check in on good old Dixie for some major directions. And then, of course, follow up on the traditional market indices. So with that said, I would like to wish you the best and the happiest. And without further ado, let's get into it right now, wasting no more time. So remember last week we did say that Dixie was essentially breaking the range. We had several points of confluence for that, and also several confirmations coming in on Thursday and Friday, of which the first major one was a daily closing above this $91.50 region right here. Then the weekly following through as well, and then just making a prior high above this high at 91 and 60 cents or so, and that did initiate our target based off the measure move towards about 92.5, of which we've almost seen there right now. Pretty damn close. Remember, this was very much in line with what we have been looking at on macro reversals for Dixie specifically, as it typically does take about 3 months, historically speaking, on these macro reversals. We've been referencing this one back on over here in 2018, this one over here in 2011, this one over here in 08, and if we go back a little bit further than that, we can see a couple in 95 and then 90 as well, all taking about 3 months. And so as we did patiently wait for that, looks like it did come to fruition, so quite nice. Here's the thing though, because this is really in line with what we have seen historically speaking, we don't see any of these prior iterations of that sort of a signature just having like one small move to, like relatively small move to the upside and then puke it back out to the downside. What I am essentially saying is that I'm more or less looking for this to continue, because we really would be an outlier historically if this one were to kind of like fail at that $92.50 target. So while that $92.50 target does pretty much already has been hit, I'd say I'd be looking for a bit of a pullback here. Probably does play back down to the 21 exponential moving average, back down to about 91.5, maybe even fall all the way back down to 91. But ultimately, I do think that it will very likely try again to the upside. And I'd be using the prior breakdown region from our last major low in November, October, November, that is, as the next sort of continuation point. So that'd be really realistically about 92.5. And we'd be looking at that on both a weekly and daily closure. So whichever one happens first, obviously daily is probably going to happen first. Then I would start to extend targets to the upside back up to about 93.5. And kind of same thing there. I'd be looking for a little bit of a pullback, probably based upon the $92 region, and then try again to the upside. But here's the thing, with Dixie putting in a bit of a reversal right here, I would be very much defensive against major assets within this world. That said, am I just blindly bearish on everything? Fuck no. In fact, I'm going to be bullish on most things today if you caught this morning's video. So have we seen in the past situations where Dixie and traditional markets rally at the same time? I'm speaking about the indices. Yes, we have actually several times, in fact, especially over like the last 10 years. I mean, you can see that this has been in pretty much full-on rally mode since 2011, going all the way to 2016. And as you probably know, for traditional markets, they've been straight up since 08, more or less, with few 10% corrections along the way. So can we see both rally at the same time? Obviously, yes. And this is just a very funny quip that I typically get as people say, Krown, how are you going to be bullish on Dixie and XYZ, whatever the fuck? Well, do you understand what Dixie represents? Dixie is the relationship of the dollar's value to other fiat currencies within the world, like a basket of them. So while it is going to put downside pressure on most assets, it doesn't necessarily blindly mean that they're all going to go down, as it's only relevant to that, which obviously has interplays with the traditional assets that we typically look at, as well as Bitcoin too. But I would say that in this next phase, we're very likely going to see sort of the laggards of the market start to fall off, I'd imagine, as it's going to be more and more difficult for them to keep up. So with that in mind, let's go over and check out our major US indices, of which, what do we have to start it off? We got, let's start off with NASDAQ. So this morning's video, we did say NASDAQ very likely has a short-term move to the downside, somewhere around like 12,400, maybe a little bit lower than that, and then very likely does bounce from that area based off of last week's Friday open, and just the fact that we do have a nice little support base within that region. And what do you know? Every once in a while, that TA bullshit, sometimes it actually fucking works. And once again, we do see it actually coming down all the way to that level, bouncing up thus far, and pretty damn good. So with all of that in mind, I do look at this as starting to put in a bit more of a low signature. We do have a few, so we do have 1, 2, 3, 4 drives on this reversal. Now, of course, I want to see the next daily closure, but we are starting to get some interesting signals right here. On the daily specifically, getting some hidden bullish divergence calls, and more importantly, we are seeing momentum oscillators turn back up, or having a chance to turn back up again, as we do see right here. And in fact, this could even visualize a trend line coming in all the way from December 2018. And what do you know? We've actually just hit this pretty much to the fucking T as of 5th of March. So I do like that, at least for a little bit of short-term, medium-term upside. Can that turn into a full-on reversal from here? Yes. Do I think that personally, do I think that it turns into a full-on reversal from here? I mean, I don't really have any real reason reason to say no at the outset because we did get the ultimate move to the downside. Yes, I did say that it probably goes down to about 12,150. We did get down to about 12,200-ish region, which, to be honest, I do feel pretty damn good about. So with all of that in mind, I would say that that bottom side target has very likely been fulfilled already. I mean, $50 when we're talking about, these sorts of bigger numbers here is not going to register all that much. And I would essentially be looking for some upside within this next week. Probably does test back around somewhere just under $13,000. So with all of that in mind, I imagine we'll see something relatively similar on SPY futures. And what do you know? Actually, a lot more healthy right here too. Same sort of move. We literally got the exact same fucking move this morning, where we came back down, tested the 3,800 level that we did speak about from this morning's video, and then bounce up from there. Good to go. And this one even does have a bit more of an obvious reversal formation, kind of a fucked up inverted head and shoulders, left shoulder, double head, right shoulder right there, neckline right around the 200 simple. And with the way that momentum also is kind of postulated right now, looking at the 4 hour and looking at 4 hour RSI, we're even getting some regular bullish evidence right there. Now you'll say, Krown, we technically don't have bullish evidence, and you're right, but I have seen these signals on caretaker RSI, and bless you, sir. But actually have seen a lot of these signals on caretaker RSI actually play out. How does that work? I don't have a good explanation for that, but I think actually caretaker has inadvertently discovered something that I don't think anyone fucking knows exists. It's kind of weird, but there is a relationship between those two because I've just seen them play out too many goddamn times. So I am partial to think that this, yes, does trade back up here. I do think that we have seen a little bit of a not just short-term reversal, but probably even a long-term reversal on this one, and likely does trade back up towards our next daily level over this next coming week, somewhere back around $3,900 We see daily momentum also is turning up at the same time, and daily RSI playing out that same hidden bullish evidence here too. All good in the hood as far as I'm concerned. So yes, this is starting to bode well, especially for Bitcoin. And as you do see on Dixie, well, Dixie probably has some short-term downside. Yes, that will help out the case, but ultimately, I wouldn't be surprised to see all these things kind of rallying with each other right now, and my voice is starting to fail me, so apologies if the raspy lesbian voice starts to rear its ugly head. Dow Jones is the strongest one of the big three indices that we've looked at thus far, closing back, or sorry, not just closing back above, but wicking back above our last range highs from the last couple of weeks. Very, very good stuff right there. Daily RSI looks more or less fine, back above the exponential. Would be very, very likely to test back up towards the edge of the bullish control zone. Wouldn't be surprised if it actually stays in there. Daily Stokes popping back up here too, very good. And more importantly, just looking at structure on the lower term timeframes, you can see a clear range high coming in right here. In this next 4 hours, gonna have a chance to clear the close above, and that's 31,600-ish region. So I'd be looking for this one to very likely continue towards the prior all-time high and probably even beyond over the next few weeks. So looking good right there as well. Anyways, moving on to gold. Is gold joining in on all this mumbo jumbo? I'm actually curious to see. Where are you, gold? Hey, where are you? There we are. Nope, gold is not joining in. Gold gets fucking nothing. You do nothing, gold, you piece of shit, you. So we did say that over the last month or so, very likely targets back down to the 1680 to 1690-ish region. We met those targets last week, so good on that one. And then we identified a death cross on the daily, of which that is very much confirmed right now. And we did say it very likely does rally into the death cross somewhere anywhere around 1730 to 1750. It doesn't look like we're going to get that move, to be fair. So I think I will be wrong on that one, as 1730 is very clearly above where we're at right now. This one looks like it wants to have a little bit further continuation to the downside, maybe before the next meaningful bounce, that is. I mean, 4 hours still downtrending pretty fucking heftily here. Just had some hidden bearish evidence right off this high, but I'd say that's already played out. So let's see what the next major level would be from a daily and weekly perspective. Daily's actually kind of in limbo right here. I'd say the next level from just a structural perspective would be right here. And that'd be at 1640 to 1640? Yeah, 1640 to 1650-ish region. In a weekly, do we have the same levels here? No, the weekly is actually much lower than that, which is rather interesting. So we either see a fucking massive fall off in gold or probably a big bounce soon. And I'd probably be going for a big bounce around that 1640-ish level. So I do think that it has more downside based off the failed bounce that we saw basically to close Friday, and then probably tries to bounce around 1640 to 1650. But again, make no mistake about it. While I do think that this one very likely does have more downside over time, I do think that it will get a healthy bounce relatively soon, and then that probably turns into the next major sell opportunity. So fair enough, right? Anyways, With that said, and as the typing ramps up in the background right now, I started to search for my voice a little bit more. Let's go check out Bitcoin and follow up on this one. So we did say on this morning's video, in line with what we saw on traditional markets, Bitcoin very likely back down to about 49,000 bucks, of which I'd say we pretty much should get 49,300 right there. Anyway, and we did say between about 49 to 49.5, I believe it was. And well, we've gotten that thus far, and so far so good. And a couple of things I want to speak about right here, because this one is technically putting in a higher low on the 4-hour. We do see that traditional markets are also putting in reversals as well. NASDAQ specifically trading with the tech sector, which Bitcoin, I would imagine, kind of trades with as well. Strong correlations right there. And then Dixie also having some short and medium term downside, I think does help the case on this here too. On top of that, we do see that 4-hour RSI is very much healthy right here. We do see a bit of an inverted head and shoulders on the on 4-hour RSI, left shoulder, double head, right shoulder, good. Neckline right at the edge of the bullish control zone. Oh, funny how that fucking confluence shit happens once again. Very strange now, isn't it? So I would say that any sort of move above here would complete that, and we would have targets back up towards the back end of this blue box territory at about 55,000 bucks. Now, that would be one way to confirm it, obviously. The next way to confirm it, there's two other ways to confirm it, which would be a close above the range high. So that's about 51,500. Or if you want to be super exact, like, what is this? 51,500 basically. I'll stick with that one. Or just taking above the prior range high on a wick basis, which is 52,669.5 on BitMexico. If one of those two things happens, I would extend that move for another few thousand bucks up to about 54 to 55,000 bucks, or it's going to be more like 54,500 to 55,000 bucks, somewhere around the 2.272 extension right here, and also kind of our range highs in this within this region as well. Until that happens, though, of course, anytime that you are grinding up against your range, your range resistance, it's not necessarily like the best time to be long in, obviously. And of course, this is not financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor, but if I do see one of those three criterion met, I would be looking for the next leg up. Especially in line with what we're seeing on traditional markets here too. And I want to point out something else as well right now. As one of the guys in the Twitch stream here, I want to give a big shout out to Mr. Gravy Grits, and he actually identified this really interesting interplay with the Trollinger bands and the 55 or 50 exponential moving average specifically. And so I'll go through it right now because this actually does help provide a little bit more basis for this narrative that I'm currently, talking about, and it's this. I'm representing the 55 exponential moving average by this light blue moving average right here, and obviously the bottom side Trollinger band is that sort of like off greenish, ugly fucking forest color. So there you go. Anyways, anytime that we have seen the the 55 cross to the downside of the bottom side Trollinger band, we have seen price action pulled into at the very least the bottom side Trollinger band at that point. Usually even test the 55 as well. So you can see that right here. Boom, initiates its test right here. Boom, this test right here, pops back above, so you get the bullish cross after that, and then price action zooms on from 35,000 bucks all the way to, well, I mean, ultimately 58,000 bucks, right? See the same thing over here, crosses to the downside. What do we do, or what does Bitcoin do more importantly? Test the bottom side Trollinger band right here. Lovely. And is it going to have a chance to cross back onto the upside once again soon? It looks rather likely, actually. Anyways, the other few times that we have seen it in this past rally were right here. Boom, crosses, test the bottom side Trollinger band a little bit later after that, crosses back onto the upside right here, massive fucking rally after that. Same thing over here, crosses to the downside. This one actually shoots through, so a little bit of an outlier to be fair, but at the very least does test the bottom side, the bottom side of it, so good. And then same thing when it crosses back in. Actually, sorry, am I getting that wrong? Yeah, sorry, no, it crosses right here to the downside. This one does test the bottom side Trollinger band soon after that, and then actually even shoots through, but then crosses back on the upside. I'll tell you about this reaccumulation phase right here, and then several instances back here, both to the downside. It works as well, and a couple ones right here too. So with all of that in mind, I do think that is rather interesting, just because it is going to have a chance to cross to the upside of it. Maybe not today, but perhaps Tuesday. Definitely will have a chance Wednesday, but probably Tuesday, I would think. So with that in mind, I would be looking at this just as kind of like a tertiary sort of confirmation tool. I'm not too familiar with it myself just yet, as I just started looking at it, but there is an obvious interplay right there, and it is rather interesting. Kind of the like a move, like an exponential moving averages relationship to a volatility based indicator, which I do think there is something there which I want to keep an eye on for right now. Anyways, with that said, at the end of the day, I do put the most focus on actual ranges to begin with. And if we do go back on over here, do I think that Bitcoin could still come back down to 45,000 bucks? Yes, I do. It is kind of a ticking time bomb, so I do want to make sure that that I'm being deliberately clear. Unless the Bitcoin does close above the range highs, it's still the range, and the range is essentially 51,500 to the upside versus 45 to the downside. And typically once after you test the top side of the range, typically, you're going to go test the resistance after that. Now, of course, in this case where a breakout is possible, I would give the nod to that. And if we go over here to CME, I actually do think that this one is a little bit more lovingly situated right now, especially from a momentum oscillator perspective, like our 4-hour Stokes, as they do start to trend up. But what I would keep an eye on is this trend line right here, because that one obviously has been rejecting price action for the last half month, or actually a little bit more than a half month, and we'll have a chance to test it not on this next tick, but probably the tick after that as well. If that actually breaks alongside price action breaking, that's going to be a damn good indication that Bitcoin will trade back up to that $55,000 level, and then we'll probably see beyond there. But for right now, it's definitely possible. It's very close. I'd still like to see it confirmed because in this case, things are getting rather hot. I'm curious if we see any sort of HVP indications down here as well. Yes, so this is what makes me very interested here too. HVP is really starting to tail off into the single digits. So I do think that we are looking at a breakage relatively soon. We even see an apex on this coming in around 16th of March. That means that very likely to resolve itself on the 9th or 10th of March, which, seeing as we're on the 8th day of March, that's actually like right around the corner. So fair enough. I would say that essentially if Bitcoin does fail to get continuation here in the next couple of days, Bitcoin inevitably will very, 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 very likely see back down to at least 47,000 bucks, probably even 45,000 bucks. And then we'll come back to it after that. But for right now, I do think that there's a little bit more pressure onto the upside, especially after that last move that we saw, and in line with what we did see from this morning's video with traditional markets. So with all of that said, I would like to wish you the best and the happiest once again. I'm going to go eat a shit ton of pork and some liver as well. I absolutely love beef liver. And until next time, fellas, and also non-fellas. Peace.